Hello, my friends, and welcome to a space where pleasure is treasured, relaxation is not what you think it is, and life firing on all cylinders is what we're about. If you are somebody who wakes up every day asking for way more, consider this your happy place. Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. I'm your host, Heather Nichols. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. It is Heather Nichols here, and I am grateful that you're here and excited to share this conversation with you today. We're going to be talking about the fact that you can't create from a lie. This is a really cool conversation and something very new. Well, it was new to me at one point. That really, when I heard this, it was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Nobody has ever talked to me about this. And this is a conversation that comes from the Joy of Business and Access Consciousness body of work, and is woven through a beautiful class that I facilitate called Business Done Different. And I have one coming up in about a month, depending on when you're listening to this, at the end of March 2025. It's going to be online, and it's going to be in Colorado as well, live. I haven't done a live one in a while, so I'm excited to be in person with people as well. But this idea that we can't create from a lie, and one of the things that stimulated this for me as a topic to bring here was this. I had a conversation with somebody who I was doing a session with her, and she was talking about bringing profitability to her businesses, and she had a bunch of businesses, and it was just really interesting because it didn't really, the energy of what she was talking about, it didn't really match what I was aware of. And so it was like cognitive dissonance, and if you haven't, I think the last episode I did was on cognitive dissonance. So you could check that out if you want to have a deep dive into that, because there's some really cool stuff showing up around that lately. But it was just this sense of like, I was like, this isn't quite reading, and so I asked her, do you want to work? And she was like, no. And it was so cool because there was a lightness to it, and she laughed, and it was like everything just like opened up from that point. Now, you might say, well, too bad. I mean, somebody who wasn't willing to look at the energy would just look at that conversation and they would go, well, too bad, you have to, and that's a lot of times what we tell ourselves is like, well, too bad, I have to, like everybody has to work, so I have to work. But that's not actually true. And especially when, when we're, whatever it is that it's like we're telling ourselves that we have to do something that we don't want to do. That's a lie. The starting point is actually the cognitive dissonance. It's a lie. And we put it in place, and then we set off to create, based on that. But that's never going to work. It's never going to yield anything, because the very foundation of what it is that you're creating, it's not true for you. And when you can acknowledge that, it doesn't mean, okay, well, now you're screwed because you don't want to work, but you need to work because everybody has to work. And, it's like you can start to look at different questions, different conversations, different possibilities, but you're giving yourself access to so much more of you, and this space of like this conversation of like, well, what's actually true, because once you get to what's true for you, the creation that occurs from there, it's pretty phenomenal, and it tends to be quite easy and quite elegant, meaning greatest result with the sort of smallest amount of work involved. And that to me is the ease, joy, and glory that's possible for us if we're willing to have it. And also, when you're willing to go beyond like the structures of how people say things need to happen, then you open yourself up to so many possibilities that you didn't even know existed before. But most people aren't willing to tell themselves the truth about what it is that they, what's true for them, what they're asking for, what they desire. Most people aren't willing to tell themselves the truth about that. And so there's so many people trying to create something from the lies that they're telling themselves, and it just never goes anywhere. And so this can be a really great thing to be aware of. If there's something that you think you've been wanting to do, wanting to create, wanting to have in your life, it could be in your business, it could be even like a relationship or having a baby or anything like that, and it's not showing up, you may not actually desire it. There might be some level where you're lying to yourself about what you desire. And so often we do that because we've decided it's the right thing to do. And the thing that we actually desire it's not the right thing to do. It makes us wrong. And so we have to like hide it even from ourselves. I know someone who tried for so long to have a baby, and she was so upset and devastated that she couldn't get pregnant. She couldn't get pregnant. She couldn't get pregnant. She couldn't get pregnant. And finally she realized she didn't actually want to have a baby. And she was so relieved when she got to that awareness and willing to give herself permission to not have a baby. So relieved, so grateful, so happy about it. And her life took a totally different direction after that. And, just all kinds of things started to open, and she started to really flourish with everything she was creating because she was congruent with what was true for her and what she desired. It's interesting because, I talk to so many people about the creation of their lives and living and what it is that they're like. I facilitate people all the time on what they're creating and, how to do it in a way that has a sense of feeling natural to them and organic to them and with a sense of ease for them and, not having to like work and force and do all these, I would say, outdated ways of functioning. And this is something that comes up so often because we just assume that there are things that we want because that's what you're supposed to want. You're supposed to want to get married. You're supposed to want to have a baby. You're supposed to want to work. You're supposed to, whatever, fill in the blanks. And there's a lot of different stuff, it depends on your culture, your upbringing, your family, the values, the beliefs, all of that stuff. And so it takes a lot of courage to get really present with ourselves and be like, okay, is this actually what I desire? And it was so great to just be with this woman in this session and just really ask her, is this true for you? And there was enough vulnerability, enough presence, enough space and non-judgment there that she could actually look at it and go, no, and you might like, and she may have like instantly jumped to, well, but I have to work. I have to make money somehow, but if we jump immediately to those types of things, then we eliminate all the awareness that we could have of a totally different possibility, that it would be something that actually would be so much more fun and enjoyable for us. And so we have to sit back with those types of awarenesses that are sometimes kind of earth shattering, where you're like, oh, I don't actually desire this, and have the vulnerability, have the presence, have the allowance, and, not go into judgment of ourselves and go, okay, this is what's true. This is what is here. And, I've had these moments in my own life where I've gotten to such a degree of frustration with things that just don't show up or haven't shown up, that I will ask myself this quite a lot. Like, do I desire this? Do I actually desire it? And what is it that I actually desire? Because if I don't actually desire this, I need to get straight with myself right away so that I can get clear on what I do desire. Because I know that as soon as I have, like, the cognitive dissonance has gone from my own world, and I have that sense of presence and awareness, and I'm willing to be honest with myself, as soon as that shows up, then there's so much possibility that opens up. And I know that. So it's a priority for me to always get to that awareness, that sense of, okay, it doesn't matter if I have no idea how I would create this. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to get clear, because I know from the clarity of what I desire that there's going to be more that shows up. I just realized my name is showing here. I forgot to hide it. Little shiny object syndrome. I'm like, I don't usually have my name showing up. I think you probably know my name. So I'll have to figure out how to hide that next time. So anyway, ADHD. It's good for the soul, It's good for keeping it real around here. So there's something else I wanted to bring to this conversation, and this is a really fun little moment. It takes a lot of, I would say, irreverence, and also willingness to really look from a different place, and not going to all kinds of judgment to have this particular conversation. And it was one that was had years ago in a class with Gary Douglas, who is the founder of Access Consciousness. And we were in an advanced body class, which is a energetic energy work class that is just a beautiful, beautiful class, beautiful space. And we were in this class, and this conversation came up, and there were all these, women in the room, and it was just this like beautiful, spacious, kind of fluid conversation that we were having with him and with each other about women and work. And so this is kind of like getting a little more specific beyond that you can't create from a lie, but I felt like this would be a fun thing to share. So he started talking about how he was like, he started asking, are you a worker woman, or are you a woman of leisure? And it was such a cool energy to look at this and go, am I a worker woman or a woman of leisure, or like a lady of leisure, And everybody was looking at it and going like, huh. And the idea is not, this isn't about, there's nothing here around like women's rights and feminism. And I don't do those conversations. Like, you won't find those conversations here. So if you're looking for that, you can go somewhere else. But because to me, there's something really amazing to a conversation to be had around being a lady in the world, and acknowledging the power of that, the beauty of that, the relaxation of that, the gift of that, the receiving of that. And part of being a lady, I would say, is really being able to tell ourselves the truth about what is true for us. And so you can be, if you're a lady of leisure, and this isn't about defining yourself either, but it was so cool to look at these energies and go, what's actually true for me as a being, because there are things that we can be anything. We can try on all kinds of things. We can be very fluid with who we are and how we show up. And there's something really cool about looking at specific energies and going, does that read for me? Like, is that true for me? Or maybe it's not, And so looking at this, okay, so am I a lady of leisure, or am I a worker woman? And it's not, you're one or the other, you can be both. But it was sort of this, he was giving this invitation to this start to have awareness of, okay, well, maybe I'm more of a worker woman. Maybe I like to really get things done and like, spring into action and, you know, like just, like change the world and, all those things like, be kind of more busy, I guess I would say. And this lady of leisure energy was more like, I think he was asking kind of like, well, what do you do when you get up in the morning? Do you bound out of bed and get to work? Or do you like to chill out? And that's, again, none of this is about defining either one of these energies or defining you. It's just giving different energies here to start to play with and create more awareness for you. And I was like, wow, I could really see both. I definitely love to work. I definitely love to create. And there's also that, there is a part of like this lady of leisure that is a really fun energy for me to play with. And ever since that conversation, I could have both. I could be both. I could play with both. And I also really acknowledge I'm way more of a worker woman. Like I'm way more of somebody who I love every day to be like, what can I accomplish today? What can I create? What, how many more things can I do? And, put on the books and, all of this. Now, when we resist that, let's just say you're more of a worker woman. If you're like, I need to be less busy, or, this is too much, or I need to chill out, or I need to slow down, or I need to relax. It's like, you may be lying to yourself about what is true for you. And I play with this all the time in ever expanding ways. It's like, I love to be very engaged and very dynamic. And my body, even lately, has been asking for more of that, more of those energies of like more, both, movement with my own body, like different types of movement with my body, but also just movement of energy in my world, like dynamic creation. And I've noticed that when I have periods where I have less of that, and it's kind of more that lady of leisure energy. Like I really prefer kind of smaller doses of that. And this ease can be woven through all of it. But part of what brings the ease is when we actually acknowledge what's true. And so, because worker woman tends to have this kind of like, it tends to have this, kind of sped up energy and like always being ahead of yourself. And it depends on who you are. But for me, what I've noticed is I get very like, I get kind of jacked up. Like my nervous system gets kind of jacked up and, my body's like, and so it's like, if I acknowledge, I love this, this is exactly what I want to be doing. And I can relax into it. Then it's like, there's such a different space there. And the space is more like, there can be this like ease, joy and glory woven through everything that I'm doing and accomplishing. And the sense of like, this is actually relaxing for me. It's actually relaxing for me to be dynamically creative. And if there's too much leisure lady, I start to feel kind of stagnant, Now, the flip side would be, and again, please don't go into definition. Let this just be something to spark your curiosity for more awareness for you. What's true for you? If you tend to be more of like a lady of leisure, and you're telling yourself like, I need to work, I need to do, I need to, you will be going against your nature both ways, whether it's worker woman or lady of leisure, you'll be going against your nature, going against who you are as a being. And yeah, you can be lots of things. You can do lots of things. And there is this beautiful, you are a unique being who has unique, traits and energies and awareness and ways of functioning in the world that are just unique to you and specific to you. And it's not that you have to be defined by that. But when you start to really go, you know what, I'm going to get into allowance of who I am and what I am and what's true for me. You can relax into all of that and start to see so much more of what actually works for you. If you are more lady of leisure, then create your life that way, and this is where the tools of access consciousness come in so beautifully, because anything that when you get to what's true, the cognitive dissonance goes away, you get to the awareness and the acknowledgement of what's true for you. Now you have this beautiful space from which to create. And you can create lady of leisure. You can create all kinds of people contributing to you and supporting you. None of that is wrong. None of it's wrong. And none of it's right. Lady of leisure isn't wrong or right. Worker woman isn't wrong or right. And having the awareness of what floats your boat, what's exciting to you, what's true for you, is you will be able to relax into it so much more, not resist what's true for you. And that is where the magic comes. You start to have awareness of new choices, different possibilities, maybe different people start to show up in your world and contribute in a different way. When you get aligned and congruent and out of the cognitive dissonance, you have the peace that is the true peace of creating based on what is true for you. You can't get to that if you judge what's true for you, or you try to change it, or you try to resist it. As soon as you get to what's true, don't define it, don't solidify it, don't be like, this is what's true, period, end of story, because you've just turned that into a conclusion, which stops the movement of energy, stops the movement of creation. But the acknowledgement of like, wow, that's so much more of who I am in this moment, that like doors open up all over the place for you to create something very different. That to me is the creation of living. It's the acknowledgement of what's true for us, the relaxing into it, and valuing the pleasure, the adventure of creation, the pleasure of living and being alive and listening to our bodies and creating a life that's really beautiful for us. It doesn't have to be beautiful for the world. People will judge you. They absolutely, if you have a life of ease and you do what's true for you and you're not controllable by other people's judgments, you will be judged. Who cares? Who cares? Why are other people's judgments more relevant than what's true for you? And this is how we make our lives. This is how we create flourishing, and this is how we make our lives so much ease. Desiree Dumond and I talked about that on the last episode last week. So an invitation to get vulnerable with you, look at what's true. And if you don't judge it, you've just opened yourself up to some really beautiful possibilities. And that's the world I wish to live in, is where each one of us gets to honor ourselves as unique and different, and create something really cool that's never existed before. So thank you for you. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me for the Creation of Living podcast. If this conversation was inspiring to you, share the love. To work privately with me or for info on my upcoming classes and retreats, go to heathernichols.com. Have a beautiful day. And remember that the world thrives when you do.